over, his head hitbox is not accessible from behind. These little wings are also part of his hitbox as well. Overall, his hitbox is very large and poofy. I mean, look at that giant hitbox on his chest and his back legs. Like, all of that is targetable, so it makes Winston really hard to miss. We also have hitbox data on his primal form, in which he is no longer slouching and is much more upright. His body hitbox is so wide that it covers the gaps between his arms, and his head hitbox is also enlarged quite a bit, making him once again hard to miss, unless you just whiff. It may be difficult to headshot him while he's jumping around and juggling another teammate, so a takeaway from this is to focus on body shots when his back is facing you, so you don't waste your time going for the head at this angle. For Ball, don't be fooled by this. It looks weird because this is Ball when he's stationary, but when he's moving and shooting, the green hitbox outlines are still accurate. But it's very difficult to headshot Ball because his head is so small relative to his body, and if you miss left or right, you won't land any body shots, unlike the other tanks. With so much body shot surface area, just focus your aim there. It seems like half his cannon is still part of the hitbox as well, something else to keep in mind. And yes, when Ball is rolling around, his head hitbox is completely hidden, along with his mechanical legs and arms. Who would have thought? Next we have Zarya, one of the smallest tanks in the game. Her head hitbox is large and targetable from all angles, front, side, and back. No part of her gun is in the hitbox. Her legs are spaced apart quite a bit, so you can miss your shots between there, but there is no gap under her armpits, so if you're a body shot bandit like me, aim in her upper half. Now that we've done all the tanks, let's look at their orthographic hitbox comparison just to see how it matches up with the other ones side by side. You can totally see how Zarya and Sigma are so small, and look how big all the tanks are, gosh. It looks like Winston's head and Roadhog's head at first glance here seems the largest, with Diva's being quite surprisingly small. Take one last look at this as it rotates, and then we'll move on to the DPSs. For Ashe, her legs are very wide and spread apart, so be wary of that. The tail end of her coat that sticks out is not part of her hitbox, and her head hitbox is a giant sphere, so no matter what skin you're rocking that changes her hat, it will all connect, so don't be fooled by it. Basham, while he's in recon standing form, has quite a cylindrical head hitbox, and his turret gun that's attached to his back counts as part of it, meaning you won't be able to land any headshots from behind. But realistically, you won't be fighting Basham in this form very much, as he's usually in his turret form, with his head crit box, the Tesseract, which is resting in the back, which means it's inaccessible from the front. It's like the literal opposite of his recon form. When Basham uses ult in tank form, he no longer has a head hitbox whatsoever. Doomfist is just jacked, bro. His gigantic fists, shoulders, and quads have a lot of surface area, so he is quite easy to hit when he's not using his mobility cooldowns. He does slouch over a bit, so he will be difficult to headshot when his back is facing you, so just focus on body shots from that angle specifically. Not much else to it. Echo's hitbox is actually quite deceptive. Although she is quite skinny, her hitbox extends far beyond it. A few more important things to note is that her wings are indeed part of her hitbox, and this little upper part of her head is not. Genji's hitbox is fairly reasonable, nothing much to note other than his sword not being part of it. Now what's actually interesting is Genji's deflect. I know a lot of people are confused and have always wanted clarification on what the hitbox of it actually is. Basically, when Genji deflects, any bullet or projectile will deflect if it hits this sort of wall surrounding him. You can see that even if he's 90 degrees facing away from you, it will still deflect. When you get behind him though, this graphic shows how it goes transparent, which basically indicates the end of its range. If we look at it from another angle, it's kind of like a little cube container, but with some spacing in the back, which basically indicates that the side deflect hitbox is a bit longer than his back. You can also see that the top of his head counts as the deflect hitbox as well. The biggest takeaway from this is that the length of the hitbox extends far beyond Genji's player model, above and below him. However, the Z-axis, which is the distance between Genji and the deflect range, is quite short, so you can splash projectiles nearby him. Hanzo's hitbox is fairly reasonable as well. His legs and his shoulders are a little bit thicker on the hitbox than it is relative to his character model. His bow and quiver are not part of the hitbox, and that's about it. Just watch it rotate, boys. Just watch it rotate. Junkrat's hitbox is quite large, and he slouches over, making his head sit up front along with his giant rip tire in the back being part of the hitbox. Also look at his fake leg. It's a stick, but the hitbox says otherwise.